falling in line with recent studies that measure how risk-taking and decision management are affected by the powerful hormone. Joining us right now is psychologist, author, and radio talk show host Dr. Cooper Lawrence. Fox Business Network's Ashley Webster joining the conversation as well.
The lone guy.
Yeah.
Now I know why I'm here.
It's your fault. Testosterone. So good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us, Cooper Lawrence. So what about that, testosterone?
You know, what's interesting about this is we've seen study after study that says that there's a link between testosterone and aggression. So really what this is financial aggression. It's the idea that, you know, aggression can take on many forms, and this is risk-taking in a financial environment.
Well, I think you're telling us something that women have known for thousands of years. But thank you. Sorry, Ashley.
That's okay. I'm not going to disagree.
So do you think that's why men are more likely to go into these professions, or do you think that it's, I mean, what's the chicken or the egg?
Well, you know, the other part of this is that there are other studies that find that high testosterone also means that you're more willing to, you're less afraid of fear, less afraid of threat, less afraid of and the other aspects of financial risk-taking. So it's not just your hormones that are making you do it, it's also the idea that you are more relaxed in this really highly competitive environment, whereas most of us would just be stressed out the whole time.
So Ashley, what do you think about this? These studies found that male CEOs with higher testosterone levels are more likely to be associated with financial misreporting.
Which I found really interesting. I understand the whole risk-taking, because it's almost like being in Vegas and you roll the dice and you get 7 and yeah, let's do it again. There is that tendency. Misreporting I find interesting because that's a whole other dynamic.
But it's also higher risk-taking.
It is true. I guess it plays into that bigger picture. I was thinking of my son. He's 19 now. God, he's 19. When he was 6, he used to get on the coffee table and swan dive off of it and then hurt himself and cry. And I'd say, what were you doing? 5 minutes later, he'd do the same thing. That is a male.
No,
right there. There's that kind of the risk-taking, not learning, and doing it again.
But that's a really good example, because it's not just about hormones, it's also about frontal lobe. So you're saying, you know, a young kid, the frontal lobe is not developed yet. That's the part of the brain.
Do we ever really develop?
Hopefully men do eventually.
But women have testosterone also, right? I mean, this is just so could women have higher levels of testosterone that would make them more of a risk taker?
They can, which is why this study is so important, because it's really about not just hormone levels, it's all about personality. I mean, there's a certain type of woman that maybe her hormones are not that high or testosterone's not that high, but she's a risk taker. Because whenever you see these studies, it's, you know, correlation doesn't mean causation. So they found that there's a relationship. It doesn't mean that it causes it, which is why, you know, female CEOs can be high in risk taking and make stupid decisions or make smart decisions, and it could be impulsivity.
Yeah, see, actually, I'm giving you a break this morning.
You
trying
are.
To put the women.
You are. Thank you very much. I mean, I'm not surprised by this study. I think that it's kind of the tortoise and the hare, with the male kind of, you know, and the slow and steady. That's you know, it's a little stereotypical, but I'm not surprised by the results. Are you?
I'm not, because of all the aggression studies before this that had nothing to do with financial risk-taking, but just risk-taking in general.
But
so
it's
you want high
returns. You could have the same backdrop, the same environment, and you will act much differently. Depending on the testosterone levels.
But wait, what you just said, the thing is, this is not a good study necessarily, because it says that you're also willing to do something without thinking about it.
Right.
Right, which is not the best way to handle things.
Which is why they say when you're anxious, you've got anxiety in your life, don't make important decisions.
Exactly.
Because you may make the wrong one.
Right. And somebody that is regularly high in risk-taking doesn't think about consequences, doesn't consider other people, doesn't consider anything down the road. They just think in the moment.
Well, because they're so competitive, so they want to win. So
well, that's the other part of the study. It talks about the environment. So you have to be in a competitive environment for these risk factors to take place. You know, if you're not in a competitive environment and you're a high risk-taker, you have a very different response to these stimuli.
And this might be a totally naive question, but to what extent does testosterone vary by day or week or situation? Like, are we talking about this is a consistent thing? Or
no, it's a very good question, because it's person to person. So the idea is testosterone is just one factor. There's also personality. You know, there's also brain functioning. I mean, there's so many things to take into consideration. It's not just testosterone.
Yeah, you have A-type personalities, right? So you have people who are driven. There are those that say because of testosterone, that's how you end up with stock market bubbles, that it just feeds on itself. This race to, you know, get in on a great deal as the stocks rise.
Right.
And then that aggression and that risk-taking eventually goes pop.
Right, but you know, it is kind of like it's like if you're feeling a certain way, I might like feel that way as well. I can't think of what the word I'm trying to think of, but it basically like
you'll get my energy.
I'll get your energy. So if you're working with somebody who is very high in risk-taking behavior, you may jump on that train, and feel like, well, this impulsivity is a good way to go, and see somebody as higher in testosterone as somebody who is more of a leader, and that's not necessarily the case.
Well, women get blamed on our hormones for decision making, so thank you for bringing us
now we can blame men for bad decision making as well because of hormones.
I'm going to go jump off a coffee table.
Dr. Cooper Lawrence, Ashley Webster, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will see you soon. We'll take